Hi, this is Alan Gleason for ADSR, and in this video we're going to look at creating impulse responses using Ableton effects. The most common use for impulse responses is to capture the acoustic response of a room. Using the Max for Live convolution reverb, it comes with a large number of impulse responses sampled from different rooms and also pieces of equipment. What we're going to look at today is creating our own impulse responses for creative sound design. In order to create your own impulse responses with the convolution reverb also comes another device called the IR measurement device. This device is designed to allow you to send a signal out of your computer into speakers into a space and then record that output back into Ableton and capture it in this device. We're going to use it today to capture the response of various multi-effects chains that we've set up. I've got two tracks here, a drum track and a synth part. We'll just listen to the drum track and I'll send it to a return track with a multi-effect setup on it. If you look at that track, going into an EQ, into a resonator, into a grain delay, into a pedal for a bit of distortion, into a ping pong delay, and into an erosion. The routing setup is that on the channel that has the IR measurement device, I send that into the same multi-effects that I want to capture. I'm going to set my audio to sends only because I don't need to hear the output. And from wherever I want to capture the audio from, I select it here. So I want to capture it from multi-effects 1. So I set this to multi-effects 1. If I look at the device itself, there's two modes it can capture in. Is in true stereo, which is the mode you use if there's any going to be stereo information or differences between the right and the left channel. The other option is mono to stereo, which only sends a mono signal into your effects chain and creates a stereo file. We want true stereo for this. The amp here sets the amp level of your impulse or sweep. We're only going to be using impulse. I'm going to set this to 0. We're not going to be using the sweep mode, and the IR time is the expected reverb time or length of the impulse response that you're going to create. If we have a listen to the effect that we're going to capture, I'm going to set this to about 5 seconds, probably a bit too much, but just to make sure we don't clip anything at the end. I want to make sure this is off, trim and normalized. And when I click on impulse, it will send a very short pulse to this channel here, and it will register over here. So if I just do a test, we can hear the impulse triggering the effect that we have here. So if I'm happy with my setup, I'll click on impulse. You notice the sound registering there and on the channel. And when it's finished, it will say measurement done, and it's important to wait until that disappears. And then you click on trim and normalize, and then you can save that particular IR. So when I click on save, I'll put this into a location where I have impulse responses. I go to a convolution device that I have set up on another channel. By default, that you will have access to different preset banks, so real places, plate reverb and so on, and a bunch of presets associated with that, or a bunch of impulse responses. I'm going to open up my browser here. Now already in my places I have my convolution folder. So I'll look for the file I just created. So you created a stereo file for the left and right because we use true stereo. All online, so we can hear the impulse. So I just drag one of them into the convolution device. And now you'll see I've got a folder here named where my impulse responses are. And I can select my FX1 left and right put together, so that if we listen to the drums the way it was sounding going to that particular effect, and now I send it to the impulse response we created using our multi-effects chain. It often won't sound identical to it, but it's close enough in order to give us further sound design possibilities. If we go to our convolution device, obviously we can EQ it if you wanted to. You can change the size of it. If I half it, I get the tempo sped up by a factor of 2, or if I double it, I get the tempo halved. keep it there so we can still hear some of the delay. And I'm going to go into my shape and I can fade it in, fade it out. This one is interesting here. We can adjust the overall length of the impulse response that's going to be used. Currently it's at 1.19 seconds. So if I put this to 50%, type in 50 on the number here. It's half to. We type in 25. It uses a shorter amount or shorter length of the actual impulse response. I can reverse it. Shorten this a bit. You can transform it in various ways away from its original. This technique is also useful for capturing impulse responses from third-party plugins. Say if you're working on a friend's computer and you don't have access to similar plugins, you can capture a particular preset for use on your own computer. It can also be a useful tool to free up some processing power, particularly if you're working at higher sample rates and using devices such as the convolution reverb, which will use a lot more CPU at higher sample rates. We'll create another convolution to use on our synth track. Currently it sounds like this. I route it to another multi-effects track. On this chain here we've got a ping pong delay feeding into an overdrive with a bit of EQ into a resonator and then into an actual convolution reverb. So I go to my IR device. Just want to check the length of the IR. Okay, so it's quite long, so this time I'm going to put the ER time to 10 seconds just in case. Keep it on true stereo, amp to 0. Turn off trim and normalize. It's been routed to the multi-effects 2 and it's coming back from multi-effects 2. So I hit impulse. Sends an impulse into the left side. And that's the impulse going into the right side. So when I finish, you get measurement done, and this resets. Sometimes I think there's a glitch in the GUI where sometimes it will say progress, but it will remain yellow after measurement done. But you can just ignore that. Then you click on trim and normalize. It'll tell you the length of the impulse, 7.7 seconds, and we'll save that one as FX2. I'll go to another return track that has a convolution and I'll get that at FX2 and I'll drag it in there. So compare it. This is the original. And here is the convolution. So for various reasons, sometimes it doesn't give you an exact copy. Depending on the effects you've set up, you might need to tweak it afterwards, like with a bit of EQ. I think this one's lacking a bit of high end. That's pretty close there. So again, if I wanted to, I could go in and alter the shape, alter the length, fade in, fade out, and so on. So as discussed, there's many reasons why you might want to use this, and I'm sure there's plenty more that you'll discover yourself. This has been Alan Gleason for ADSR.